Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Commander Clash podcast, where we talk all things Commander. And today we got a saucy one. We got hot takes, double down, or take backsies. Uh, we may say things controversially, off the cuff. Maybe we've graded cards before we've seen them. So today we're gonna set the record straight. We're either gonna double, triple down on our takes, or we're gonna take backsies. We're gonna do a quick mull, pretend it never happened, erase it from the internet. Join with me today is Seth, probably better known as Saffron Olive.
Oh,
Are you a taker backer? Are you let's rewind the turn.
yeah, there might be a couple of takes I might want to take back. There might be a few in there.
Krim, so sweaty, never takes anything back. Holds you, makes you triple down on it.
Dude, I'll be honest with you. I have never ever said something out of pocket. Everything I say is correct. So naturally, I don't know what we'd be doubling down for, but I'm gonna quadruple down. Doubling down is not enough. I don't do take backsies. That's a lie. I have to take backsies. Maybe I do. Actually, I don't know if I do.
I am the Codfather, Richard. We don't take backsies here. We play sweaty. If we make a mistake, we triple down on it, pretend. This is like the you punt, and then rather than admitting your punt, you keep playing down this terrible line just to pretend you don't have it. You forget to counter a spell. They play another spell, like I can't show the counter spell now. So then you just hide and then you slowly die away. Yeah, that's how we do it. That's how we do it.
It's not. It's called content. It's the content line,
it's
dude.
for content. It's for content. That's our out.
It's my copium when I keep like one-landers.
All right. Before we get into today's show, Tomer's not here today. Phil is not here today. They're at Amsterdam. They're at MagicCon Amsterdam. But Aloe, I'm telling you this because by the time you listen to this, the event would be over. But that is why they're not here today. Today's show is brought to you by Ultimate Guard, premium protection for your trading cards. All the gaming accessories we use on this channel are brought to you by Ultimate Guard. So check out their deck boxes, sleeves, and playmats. UltimateGuard.com and Card Conduit, the easiest way to sell your Magic cards. You can skip all the typing, time, and work associated with buy listing. You can use their curated service to send in as many cards as you want with buy list value of $1 more and pay just a 5% service fee. And you can use their sorted service where you list and sort your cards and pay only 2%. You get a detailed report and fast payment once your order is processed. Get 10% off by heading over to cardconduit.com/mtggoldfish. So thank you to our sponsors. And it's time for the Ultimate Guard comment of the week. Chris Jackson, I think Seth has the right of it. Commander Clash, the podcast, is very concerned about board wipes and strong targeted removal spells. Commander Clash games just don't play out that way. They prefer to be proactive and generally don't play a lot of removal. This inconsistency seems to drive a lot of the meme comments. Wait a minute.
I don't know about
Clash
that.
games don't play out that way, or non-Commander Clash games don't play out that way.
I feel like Commander Clash games play out that way, right? We have a lot of sweepers. I mean, I guess it depends on who you're thinking of. Like Phil, I know, isn't going to be playing a lot of removal usually. So maybe we've had more of those games this season because I've also kind of trended more that direction of not playing a ton of sweepers and removal. So maybe this season has been a little more that way. But I think in general, we got a lot. Like, if anything, I think Commander Clash has way more rest and removal than the typical Commander game out there.
I would say that because of everybody like dialing back, like Seth just said, he's dialing back on removal. I've gone harder on the control, and everything I do has a hard lock in a way to control the board and has more removal. So the things that Richard often brings up, but what if XYZ Farewell, Winter Moon, I don't know, any of those are all in my decks.
Yeah, I feel this comment is meaning to say like non-Commander Clash games don't play like that, because it ain't a Commander Clash if the third board wipe doesn't go off. Like even with Phil, like that's how we gotta play, right? But I feel like outside of our play group, I can see people just like jamming their things and be like, you got it, no one got it, I win. So this comment seems strange to me that they don't think Commander Clash games follow the podcast, because I think they do. I mean, we have plenty of board wipes. We have maybe not strong targeted removal, but we have plenty of board wipes and plenty of interaction.
I do.
I think it might be true that I think this refers to when we were talking about farewell, and like I think it is true that maybe it's lost in translation here because I think we use farewell as a shortcut for wrath sometime, and the number of like literal farewells that show up is not as high as the amount of times we talk about it on the podcast. So if that's what they're talking about, I think it's just that farewell kind of means wrath onto inversion. Insert a wrath here essentially.
Seth,
Yeah,
you're
I
not
think
supposed
that's
to
the
say
biggest
farewell
thing.
anymore on the podcast. You've already broken it. We haven't even started the main podcast.
We need. I saw there was another comment. It wasn't the top comment, sadly, but it was a good one about how we need a farewell jar for Richard. So whenever he says farewell, he's got to put $1 in the jar, a coin in the jar. Yeah.
It's gonna be the greatest charity drive you've ever seen. Okay, let's move on to today's topic: hot takes. Double down or take backsies. Now, we're gonna kick things off with Seth because this topic is near and dear to my heart, and I'm actually genuinely curious if Seth is going to double down on this or take backsies. And this is Swords to Plowshares. Now, once upon a time, for you newcomers to Clash podcasts, we all thought Swords to Plowshares is great, the greatest removal spell ever printed in Magic the Gathering. And then I, Richard, decided one day that Swords to Plowshares actually sucks. Like, I hold it in my hand the whole game, and then when I need to use it, it doesn't do the thing I need it to do, so I cut it. Everybody memed on me, comments, YouTubers, our own Clash podcast. However, over time, people have stopped playing Swords to Plowshares in our group. And Seth famously joined me in the Generous Gift plan, where we played Generous Gift instead of Swords to Plowshares. But then one Clash episode, someone played an Avacyn, and that gave everything indestructible, and Generous Gift looked very sad, and Seth declared, no, Swords to Plowshares is back on the menu, baby. So he's been adding it back in his deck.
Yep.
I'm curious, Seth, where are you on Swords to Plowshares in 2024? Is it the hotness? Should we be auto-including it, or is it trash?
So this one definitely a take backs for me. I'm back on the Swords to Plowshares plan, and here's why. I will tell you why. So philosophically, I still agree with the theory of cutting Swords to Plowshares, which is I still think you don't want your deck to be full of targeted removal spells. I think I used to play way too many of them. If you look at some of my early decks, I'd have my Mortifies and Putrefies and Utter Ends and all these like targeted removal spells, and they do get stuck in your hand, and they're not very effective. And when every card's making 5 cards, they're not a great way of answering things anymore. But going to like just Generous Gift or maybe Generous Gift and Beast Within is my targeted removal, I ran into 2 problems. One is they're not that efficient. They're very flexible, but they're not very efficient. The second is you can't kill everything with those, going back to the Avacyn game. And I blame Wizards for this. I think this is partly Wizards, how they're designing cards for Commander. We were kind of talking about this off cast. There's so many of these must-kill snowball-y threats. I can't count the number of times I've been annihilated by Eldrazi in the last few months. Like, there's so many of these things. It's like, if I can't kill this thing, it's going to go real. Yeah, who would do that, Crib? But there's these threats that you just really have to be able to remove, and Swords is still just the best way to get that done. So I'm back on the Swords plan. I'm definitely not back to playing like 5, 6, 7, 8 targeted removal spells in my deck, but I have found that if I'm playing white, I'm running a single Swords again, just so I have this get out of jail free card for that Ulamog, that Avacyn, that Nadu that's going to pop off. Nadu's another one, right? Like, sure, you can deal with it eventually with your Generous Gift, and it's great, but it might have already drawn 10 cards and ramped your opponent a whole bunch, and you're still super far behind. So I have started to value the efficiency and instant speed aspect of Swords again, just as a get out of jail free card against all these busted snowball-y creatures. But what about you, Richard? Are you taken back too? Yeah. No.
Quadruple down. I have never believed it so hard. I'm even cutting Generous Gift. Okay, but I got an answer for you, Seth. So you're scared of indestructible threats?
Yes.
Ablation. So Ablation is a 3 mana. Remove any non-land by shuffling it into the deck. Its owner draws 2. So this gets rid of indestructible, but it has the upside of you like firing it off on your dorks to draw 2 cards. But it has the downside of not being able to kill like a Field of the Dead. But good thing Field of the Dead is banned in our meta, right?
It's true.
But Ablation is one of the answers. But for me personally, I have like quadruple down on this. Like there's like I'd play a second fog over swords. I would play like dress down. I really like, because like a lot of the games, it's not a commander that deals. It is, you know, a stacks piece from Crim. That's not a creature, right? It is a propaganda.
What are you talking
right?
about?
It is
All of-
a
all of them
panharmonicon or
creatures.
something, right? Like there's a bunch of things that are not creatures that you need to deal with. So I want my removal to be versatile, and I can only play
Sure.
one or two. It has to be.
What are
It
you
has to be
talking
something
about?
versatile.
All my hate bears are creatures, like, because they are hate bears. Usually, just
Those ones are fine because those get caught up in the sweepers, right? Like usually, you don't.
How easy
care
do you
too
think
much?
it is to just sweep? Like, you know what I mean? Hate fairs usually makes it a little more inconvenient to sweep, right? These last couple of episodes, there's always been one key creature, right? Imagine, like, what is it? One of them, I had an Ulamog. It had indestructible, right?
Yep.
Well, if you had his swords, you would have answered it. Seth mentioned,
But then you
I
just
think
die, right? I accept that you just die in these
No,
scenarios,
that's
right?
the-
But let's say you had a swords and then they have a boots you need to knock off. You're like, I don't know, I die too, right? Like you just accept that you don't have the right answer lined up. But I think more versatile removal more often gets you better, right? Like a dress down, I think, actually answers way better than swords because they crater hoof. You swords one thing, you take 60,000 and you still die. Whereas a dress down shuts that all off. They Nadu, you dress down, it's done, right? Like there's a bunch of things you can do to just more cleanly answer the board. They hit you with a bunch of durdles, you fog, you're good. So I like these other answers more than swords. Like obviously there's cases where swords will do something good, but I feel there's less of those than the other answers, right? So I take the other answers over the swords.
What about efficiency
think-
though? Like,
well, the
Yeah.
or go ahead, Grim.
I think that the reason you may like, so we have themes, right? We have themes every week. And that is why I think that there aren't enough things to truly push the meter in this group, right? With, you know, respecting these creatures with spot removal. I will say there is a fair amount, like, example, if we were just in the wild, right? I think there's going to be a lot more creatures that will require you to have spot removal that are just so good that you just immediately need a cheap answer that needs to be exiled, right? There's going to, because each week we are playing something that is themed, I think that we don't actually push the bar enough to where, it allows us to get away with no swords. It allows us to get away.
So you're saying higher
with
power
certain
level,
things.
right? But
Well,
the problem with
not
higher
even-
power level is that if everyone plays a must kill commander, right? You're like, I need the swords to remove it. But then I kill Seth's must kill commander, and then Crim's must kill commander comes in and like blows me out of the water. Like I can't have 18 swords in hand. So at a higher power level, you just get rid of all interaction. And I would rather just play rituals and force my must kill commander through and win rather than trying to police you guys with swords to plowshares, if that makes sense, right? Like we've seen it with like very brutal commanders that if you use your turn to remove it, the next person just plays their must kill threat and then you die to that. So it's really difficult to keep up with that. So you might as well just hope to fade everyone and then do your thing and win the game before everyone else stabilizes.
I feel like being one I feel like being one mana is the big selling point. Like the problem with generous gift isn't that
Fog
bad. It's just that it's hard to leave up 3 mana. It's the same thing we talk about with like Ink Shield versus Fog or something. Like Ink Shield, yeah, sure, it's great when you do it, but can you realistically leave up 5 mana for the chance that you're going to get a chance to use it? I feel like being just 1 mana and just like there's so many of these commanders that are or not even just commanders, but also other cards that I don't even know if I can wait until I get to my turn and try to wrath them, or if I'm just going to be dead by that point, by the amount of value that they generate, by what they do, by putting a ton of lands on the battlefield. So I think that there's an argument to just like having this one card in your deck that for a single mana can deal with any creature at instant speed before your opponent can pop off and like develop their board and have their big turn. And sometimes you don't have the wrath. Like we've also seen that in recent commander clashes where sometimes no one has it, even though there's wrath in your deck. And then swords is a nice backup plan for those scenarios. So I'm fully back on it. Like I'm playing it. Like I said, I'm not playing a bunch of target
I'll check it
removal
next
again,
year
but
with you, Seth.
I'm playing swords
There's
again.
no way. I don't believe Seth. I don't believe
Avison
Seth.
game. That Avison game got to me. It got to me.
One
It changed
Avison
me.
game
It
threw him
changed me,
off.
man.
I forgot what happened. I played. I remember I
It's
had
literally an
Avison.
Avison, and we
It's
couldn't
always
deal
you,
with it. Because-
You got the
It was
Avison, you got the Ulamog, you got the Stags pieces.
I'm just out here just checking. I'm just checking y'all for some removal, and Richard fails the check every time. I actually go for Seth because I know Seth will probably have the spot removal. Because I know you're responsible.
Oh no! See, now you're gonna make me cut swords again. If that's why
Yeah.
I'm getting annihilated because I might be playing swords. Richard was right the whole time. Swords is horrible.
I mean,
all right. There was another thing. So this was all related. This is all the same topic. So we cut Swords to Plowshares, and we invented the fog meta. And Krim was like, the fog meta is not real. Tomer said the fog meta is not real. Seth and I believed in the fog meta. And today I'd like to announce I'm quadrupling down on the fog meta. And I know that you guys can't lie to me because I've seen Krim snap off fogs. I've seen Phil snap off fogs. It's a one mana or free, depending on the colors,
I've not
counter
played a fog.
combat step.
Yep.
You have played fog. I've seen you play in
Fogs.
darkness.
I've played fogs. No. No, I've played into darkness.
Yeah. No, you've casted darkness too. I remember this.
Did I? Well,
But fog is so good, and that's the reason why I don't even play sword. I would rather play a second fog. So let's make it clear. Fog is good, but you only play like 1 or 2 in your deck, right? You can't put like 6 fogs in your deck. Like you're not going to make any progress, right? But if I have like 3 or 4 interaction spots in my deck, like 2 or 3 will be fog. And yes, sometimes fog doesn't save you, but more often than not, it does. And it gets you out of these like impossible scenarios. And it is so bad that I played the anti-fog meta too now. So I played Grand Abolisher and like Questing Beast to make sure I don't look silly as I go for lethal and use like my 1 win con and get blown up by a 1 mana spell. So that's how much I believe in the fog meta. I like anti-metagame myself to make sure that we don't we don't get got by this.
Richard's out here chasing ghosts. I like
Yo, when I see Phil and Krim snapping off fogs, I gotta be careful. I gotta be careful about this.
Okay, first off, you've seen me cast fogs. Like, hey, I played a Questing Beast deck. And that was as my commander, and it was all fogs, right? But that is because I'm doing it out of memes, right? Like, I want you to know I am memeing. I will say there are some decks where it's good in, right? Like, let's go with like my
deck?
Miku deck. Constant Mists, right? Like, I played in that deck because you can sack the lands. It's fine there. It's good there. But what you were telling me is that on average in any color deck, you would play a fog. If
Yes.
the colors can support it,
Do you know
play
how
fogs.
sad I am when I play Is It? I was like, where's the fog? There's no fog, right? Green has a million fogs. White has fog. Black has a single fog, which I got the original Legends version before it skyrockets in price. And red has sorcery speed enchantment fogs. Blue has nothing. Blue is like out of luck. Blue has dress down and cross your fingers.
Have you
There's
heard
no
of
fog in
Cyclonic
blue.
Rift, the super fog?
Okay,
7 mana.
that's 7
though.
mana.
7
I don't want to pay
mana.
7
I-
mana for a fog.
I would pay 7 mana to bounce all your stuff, though. So, like, look, I think fogs have a home. Fogs are obviously great. I played into them. You know, I think they're great in certain decks. I'll say this. I'll meet you halfway. I'm not gonna say the fog meta isn't real because I myself, I think that I started doing that thing where I play it jokingly to
And
the
it was
point
so
where
good.
now I just play
Yeah.
it, right? Like I put 1, right? Like I'll so you know what? That's my take. See Backsies. I apologize for saying the fog meta is not real, but I am curious if the fog meta only exists because I play with y'all so much that you have somehow earwormed it into my brain.
We've brainwashed Krim into playing fog somehow, yeah. I mean, really though, I would double down on this one too. I know Richard started it, but like this should just be part of like the deck building checklist. You know, Tomer's list that he uses to like show people like how to build a commander deck. You need this much card draw, this many ram cells. It should be 1 or 2 fogs on there. Like, I really believe that every deck that should just be one of the slots. And like Richard said, some color combinations you just unfortunately don't get a fog. But I think there's something that you should play in every deck, and it's really hard for them to be bad. And it's another card that takes advantage of just like how much card advantage exists in Commander these days. Like 10 years ago, when maybe you'd run out of cards or something, there was a cost to drawing like this narrow card that is going to be situational that maybe you can't use until later in the game. But that's just not a concern anymore when you always have a handful of cards. So I think every deck should have 1 or 2, I think is the right number.
All right, Krim. Hit us with your hot take.
You know what this isn't going to have fogs. So I don't know if y'all will agree with me, but this is more of not just a card. I'm talking about a whole entire set. I think March of the Machines is a Commander gold mine. Everybody says the set is was saying the set was trash at the beginning. Not y'all specifically. I mean, they felt like it was a weaker entry, but I am finding that most of my Commander decks have so many cards from March of the Machines. I've said this before, and now
give me some
I'm
cards from
doubling
March of the
down.
Machine. Which cards belong to Mom?
Don't you worry, baby boy. I got you. Let me tell you all the cards that I still play. Okay, first off, if I'm playing white and aggro decks, I love Elesh Norn, mostly just because I like all the Praetors. I think all the Praetors are solid in their respective builds, especially Urbrask, Sheoldred, maybe not Jin Gataxis, that one's a bit more of Gabaggio. But C Double, I play them in a lot of blue decks. We also have Sunfall. You're seeing that as a premier sweeper as it just exiles everything. You have Hoarding Broodlord. So many things play from exile outside the game. So being able to give all the spells you cast from exile convoke, huge. I don't even have to say it. Yuta Takahashi, world champion, fairy mastermind. That card is just the auto include, right, in blue. City on Fire, that's in a lot of red decks because it's got Convoke. You can triple your damage. It does the nuts. And then you will have Ozolith 2, Ozolith Shattered Spire. You're seeing that in counters decks. You've got Breach the Multiverse, which is like one of the premier black endgame spells, right? You've got
I didn't realize these are all March of the Machine cards.
Yeah, see, like Atali Primal Conqueror. Like that's literally in this deck.
Too?
Tribute to the World Trees in this deck. Phyrexian Censor, hypothetically, if y'all know what's up.
Is this better than a Master set? What's in a Master set? You've listed off a ton of staples there.
Yeah. Like there's random like filler bulk as well, like Cosmic Hunger, Nezumi Informant, whatever, right? Like there's common bulk that's also just good. But then you start moving, like maybe Battles. That I think people associate this set as a flop because Battles as a mechanic were a flop, right? But even then, if you just ignore the battles, you take out all the battles, you have all the sweet legendaries, right? Errant Giada, you see Kogla, Yadaro, those are often played. Drana Linvala, these are powerful pieces. Halo Forager, like there's a lot here. And that's just like the main set. I'm not even going into the side sets, like the supplemental stuff that gets attached to it. We're not even going to count Aftermath. But if we wanted to talk about just the commander decks as well that come with this, dude, the commander deck even has more stuff that we're missing here. You have Ortheon, Hero of Lava Brink. You've got Serac and Goreclaw, right? You've got all these things. Or sorry, that's not part of the commander pile. But you have Sidar, the Knights commander. You have all the Knight support. You have Guardian Scale Lord for the Dragon decks. Dude, I could go on for like an entire hour just reading this set. You saw me use Nesting Dovehawk. So like and Pain Distributor and Schema Thief, Goro and Sator. So like without reading off the entire set list, this is quietly one of the best sets for Commander. And I said that before, and I'm doubling down. So maybe I said it on the other podcast.
So if you want to crack a box and you play Commander, March of the Machines should be up there.
I think so, and especially because if everybody views it as a flop of a set, you can probably get a ton of boxes for cheap.
I kind of feel like it's like, I feel like that's every set these days. I feel like if we went to any set and just like started reading off the good commander cards, we'd be like, wow, there's a lot of commander cards. Because I think Wizards does it on purpose.
A lot of stuff, though.
Those are, I mean, maybe March is like above average, but I feel like the list of good commander cards is pretty long in every set in the modern era.
I looked at this, right? And so I looked at like Lost Cavern of Ixalan.
Oh.
I'm that's nowhere near this. Wilds of Eldraine, nowhere near this, right? We might have the virtues.
Okay.
We can go all the way back. The only other set that I think could like that is like a powerful one, above average one, but I still don't think is as good as March is Capenna. That's because Capenna is locked behind a lot of the 3-color things, right? But March brings the multicolor stuff, but also has a lot of good monocolored stuff. So I think that March is even better than like Capenna. But Capenna is very strong, don't get me wrong, but I think March of the Machine, I'm doubling down, I'm quadrupling down. If I want to play Commander, I am going to go dig through
cases of March of the Machine in his closet. I've never seen someone sell a set so hard.
Yeah. Which,
for
by
what
the
reason?
way,
I have no idea.
ignore
needs
the
to fix
15
March of the Machine's reputation.
I have 15 cases in my closet, and I need you all to just at least want to drive it up by $1 or $2.
All right.
I mean, go. Okay, like the closing thought on that, go back, look at your deck lists, and then look at a lot of cards that could be good in your deck list, and I guarantee you a chunk of them will come from March of the Machine.
I think I agree with that. I mean, the cards you listed, a lot of them are staples, but the important thing is they're true staples, like not like a specific commander or goes in a specific deck, but it's like Tribute to the World Tree, goes everywhere, right?
Yeah.
All right, Seth, hit us with the hot take.
All right, so after flip flopping a little bit, backseeing on the first one, I gotta have a double down, and I'm doubling down on basics suck. Like, Tomer's not here to defend basic land, so this is the perfect time.
Oh no, we're taking advantage of this.
Tomer just felt a sharp pain.
Yeah,
like
Tomer's
something about
a twinge, and then his back somewhere in Amsterdam, like the voodoo doll's out. So yeah, basic lands, they're just not necessary. I know people like to argue for, oh, what about my ramp spells? You don't need them. They keep printing more ramp spells for non-basic lands. You don't need rampant growth anymore. We're playing in 2024. It's not 2014 anymore when you had to have your rampant growth so you'd be able to cast a 4-drop on turn 3. I don't really see the point. And I know, yes, it is true. Occasionally this philosophy leads to Crim playing a Winter Orb and you don't get to do anything all game, or maybe a Ruination or something. But that's the price I'm willing to pay to be able to fill my land, my mana base with these sweet utility lands. So I thought the basics were bad, and I don't know, we were playing a game this week for Commander Clash, and I went to fetch and realized I didn't even have a single island in my 5-color mana base. I didn't even have one of each basic, and I was
that's normal.
Fine with that decision. So
I thought you were trolling. I thought you were like, oh, I need a sandbag in this last island or something.
Nope, didn't have an island in that one. I only had 3 basics in my 5-color deck. So yeah, basics. I haven't seen anything to convince me that I'm wrong on this one.
Oh, I'm actually going in the other direction. I'm taking a Backsies. I think basics are better than I give them credit for. Maybe every day Tomer and I align a little bit more. Dude, I was that same game we were playing, I was now sweating the fact that all I did in my Miku deck was ramp, and I was running out of forests. I was now dangerously close. I had to strategically... I thought I could just run my face across the keyboard and just start ramping, who cares? And then I realized, wait a minute, all my landfall payoffs are going to start running out soon because I don't have any basics. So maybe it's because it's a mono green deck. I do
ramped literally 12 lands out of your deck. No, I'm starting to run out.
I was getting a little scared, man. But even, let's just say outside of my Miku deck, right? I'm talking... I don't know, even my 3-color decks, maybe my 5-color deck. I'm going to say I have one of each basic and call it a day. But my 3 colors and less, my 2 and 3-color decks, I'm starting to go back up basics. I'm not cutting Sacred Foundries and the Shocks yet. I'm not where Richard's at, but I am cutting some of the tap duels, trading off the colors just to have the color consistency, to have the untapped mana, and the ability to just I don't know, feel like I'm not as threatened by Ruinations and Winter Moons.
That's because you're playing.
No, just
playing them. You're building around your Winter Moons.
Hey, look, hey. Like father, like son, okay? Father Richard is out there chasing ghosts, playing around fogs. I'm out there playing around things like Winter Moon, okay?
There's no playing around Winter Moon and Ruination, okay? I think that is not.
I thought you said all you had to do is just play around it, Richard.
No, I mean, you play around it by killing them or you counterspell it. But like to truly play around a Ruination, you need to play like all basics, right? Because if you are just playing and then suddenly you lose like 60% of your lands, right? Yes, you still have some lands to do something, but like your game is over because the person who cast Ruination most likely lost nothing, right? So you can't let that effect go through. So like playing like a miser like 10 basics doesn't help you. I think the real argument is like it's an untapped source that doesn't cost life, and like, you know, that is hard to destroy. Like they, you know, like a wasteland won't kill it and things like that. Having said all that, basics suck. Even though in white decks I started playing a lot more basics now because I have rediscovered the love of land tax. I think that card is so broken that it's worth putting in some basics. But I'll give you a different argument as to why you should play no basics. Because Wizards doesn't want you to. Right? We have seen non-basic land power creep so hard over the past year or two. And it's very simple, right? If you go back 10 years ago, your deck, let's say you played 37 lands, it'd be basically 37 basics, 63 non-basics. Wizards is selling you 63 cards, right? And then the 37 basics is free. What they have learned now is that they can sell you those other 37 cards when you replace all your basics with insane utility lands that draw cards, that end the game, that are win cons on their own. You need to fill the other 37 slots in your deck with mythics, with chase cards, right? With fetches, you know, fetches and shocks were the originals, but now we have like all these crazy utility lands, some of them which will be very expensive. Wizards will keep pushing it. So basics are on the way out. Right? So if not today, if you're still a basic believer, like imagine a One Ring on a non-basic. It's coming in 2 years, right? A Bowmasters on a non-basic. It's coming, right? Like our utility lands are so strong nowadays. Like they're so strong. I don't even play the card draw ones. Like War Room, Castle Lockthwain, all those things. I don't even play those anymore because that's, you know, 4 mana for a single card. Whereas there are like game-ending effects on lands now that I don't even need that. So I think basics are done. And if you don't believe it today, in a year, you'll definitely believe it. In 2 years, you definitely will believe it because the utility lands will just be out of control. It'll just be like, pay 4, tap, win the game. You're like, what? Like, yeah, that's what Wizards decided to do, right?
It's a really good point about the economics of it. I hadn't really like thought of it in those terms, but I think you're like super right that like Wizards, what do they want you buying? Like a $30 Beseju or a 10-cent Forest, like picking one up from the draft chaff. So yeah, it is like an untapped market almost for Wizards to be able to make a lot of money. So I think we are going to see it just keep proliferating. And I'm not even a believer in land tax. Like, yeah, sure, it's great, but I don't even know if it's worth it. Like, I don't even. It's not going to make me at basics to my deck.
Homer is definitely mad.
All right. Time for my possibly the biggest take backsies in the history of take backsies. Archdruid's Charm. Oh, so Archdruid's Charm. It's the triple green instant that allows you to either search for a creature or ramp any land onto the battlefield as one mode. Another mode is exile an artifact or enchantment. And then the other mode is like fight. I don't even remember what the other modes were. But you choose one of those 3 modes. And I declared that using the ramp mode alone, this card was an S in the tier list video for whatever set that card came in. And today, after playing with it, because I don't actually play with it for a couple months, using the ramp mode only, I would give the card a D. So I have brought it from S to a D, but because it has other modes that like kind of do relevant things, I'll give it a C. So I'll end up with a C on the card evaluation. But the biggest problem is somehow getting triple green on turn 3 to ramp a land. And the lands you want to ramp prevent you from doing that. So in a 5-color deck, this is impossible, right? Getting triple green. But even in a monocolor deck, what you really want to get out of that is like a Temple of the False God or like some like crazy utility land that will like do like crazy things in the game. But if you have those colorless lands in your deck, your odds of getting triple green on turn 3 are significantly lower. So this ends up being like a 3 mana crop rotation in the end game, which is incredibly sus. So I, after declaring it an S, have like rarely ever played it. Every time I build a deck, I look at it, and I'm like, nope, this is not possible. So I think that is the biggest switch I've done since like Swords to Plowshares.
So do you think it's bad, or like, let's say you're mono green, are you adding it to your deck? Do you think it's just like not a good enough card, or it's just too hard to cast?
Not
Really?
good enough card.
Wow.
I mean, why? I mean, so I'm paying for like a 3 mana Worldly Tutor type effect, or like a 3 mana Beast Within that's like harder to cast. Like, I would just play my real ramp spells rather than, because I really want to get a bounce land or a temple or something to make it a 3 mana, ramp 2 mana. But because I have those lands in my deck, I can't triple green unless I have a Yavimaya out. So even in mono green, it's like very difficult to get off. And then that also means I'm not playing 8,000 other utility lands, right? Like I somehow have force, right? So I actually just don't like the card at all. If you're using it for ramp, I consider it a D.
Wow. See, I had it ranked as an
enjoyed it
too. I think that I ranked it too highly because I thought it would be easier to cast, or didn't maybe think through how hard it would be to cast. But if I'm mono green and I think I can consistently cast it, I think I'm still gonna play it. I haven't went from like D S all the way down to C or D.
What does
I'm more
consistently cast mean? What does your mana base look like? 37 forests?
Yeah,
Then you ramp a forest? Like, how is this
Tomer
exciting?
staple. Tomer staple. You got 36 forests and one really good utility land for your Archmage's charm. But no, I mean,
I am curious. Didn't
go ahead.
You and Richard were very high on it, right?
Yeah,
Tomer was high on it too.
Tomer was. I think I was was I out on S? I think I was just like, it's good.
I think we were all high on it, but maybe I don't remember how high you were on it, honestly.
Like we've never seen it in a Clash game since then. That is
you
like
saw it yesterday.
You've
seen it when I played it.
Did we?
Yeah.
Hey, Crim,
and by the way, no one knows about this. That game is going up like so far in the future.
Yeah.
But I mean,
whatever.
That's like
regardless.
once, right? Like that's not S worthy. Like you got to be seeing it like every game, right? And it needs to do impactful things. I don't even remember what it did the game we played it, right?
I don't even like think it's an S to begin with, but I do think it's solid. I don't think it's a C, right?
I thought Cave kind of does the same thing now, right? Urza's Cave, which was released after this, but that's 3 mana tap, all colorless. So that's 4 mana to tutor up a land at instant speed, which is 1 more than triple green, but it also is just a land. So
how much?
I don't like the charm.
Richard, let me ask you too. How much is our house ban list part of it? Do you think if we hadn't banned Field of that Glacial Chasm, do you think it would change it all? Just like, because we got rid of, I think the most busted thing you do with that is instant speed of Glacial Chasm, right? Like that's probably, it's like a fog that you can also get in your ramp spell. Like if we were still playing with those cards, would that change it all or no?
Oh, it definitely.
Maybe in mono green.
It definitely.
Okay.
But like in different, like you it's hard to muster triple green. Right? Yeah. And like the way to do it is you'd have to use one of your ramp spells to ramp a Yavimaya out. But in like 3, 4, 5 color decks, it's gonna be very difficult. So maybe it's, I couldn't call it a B. I still think it'd be a C. Like just to get a Glacial Chasm out, like you have crop rotation, you have Urza's Cave, you have all these better ways of doing it. So I don't think so. Field of Dead, like it's not worth it, right?
Yeah. Plus, they just printed like Sowing Microspawn. Like they're printing more and more of these cards that can get non-basic lands. So I think like why play the triple green version that's really hard to cast when you can have so many other options now, or like an increasing number of options that can kind of do the same thing.
Yeah. Also, it's very likely I get to 4 mana. Even at 4 or 5 mana, I don't know how likely it is that I have triple green available.
Yeah.
In like 3, 4, 5 color decks, right?
That might be a Richard problem to some extent, but, but I do know what you're saying.
You have a 4 or 5 color deck. You have the other colors. Like, did you really try to ramp triple green while fixing 5 colors by turn 3?
Yeah,
like, are you really doing that just for the off chance of a Archdruid charm, right? Like,
yes.
Yeah, it's hard.
Yes. I don't know. I mean, I've thoroughly enjoyed it, but maybe because I don't.
But only in mono green, right? Mono green's the only place.
No, I played
talking
it in my
about
Bernard deck. I play it. Yeah, like it was. I don't know. The modes on it have been nice. They've been real nice, dude. I
You like the other modes. You like it as like, the charm.
I actually use the non-ramp mode, right? Like specifically the amount of times I've been able to save myself from maybe like an enchantment or artifact. I've done that a lot, and obviously the fighting. That's the one I use the least. I mostly use the first two, the ramp, and then the exiling of an artifact or enchantment. But it's still good.
Here, I'll test Seth. What if we cut a removal spell for Archdruid's charm? Because it does the fight, it exiles an artifact or enchantment, so it could take your Beast Within slot while having the upside of being a ramp spell.
I think the fight mode's so bad. I do not like fight as removal, so it doesn't sell me just because of that. If it was like a swords, then you might have me. If it just exiled the thing, but yeah, fighting's too tough to actually pull off, too inconsistent.
All right, Krim, hit us with a hot take.
I think more often than not, you're going to hear that everybody says aggro sucks in Commander and aggro doesn't exist in Commander. And I think that is entirely false. So like I am doubling down because I've said aggro exists in Commander. It's just the problem is no, it's, and I think it's genuinely good. The problem is there is this association with feel bads when what is aggro meant to do? Aggro is meant to focus one opponent down, get them down, keep them down, end them, go to the next one. But everybody does this half, lower your health, spread the love. You don't do that. You just hit one person. There should not be feel bads. That is your archetype. That's like if you feel bad that you stormed off in your storm deck, right? Like no, why would you feel bad about that? Aggro decks have to keep their foot on the person that they are beating down. And when you do that, you just keep doing it. You don't let up. You don't feel bad. And no matter how much they puppy dog eye you, you just keep going. Most importantly, there's another reason why people think aggro is bad, and it's because aggro, in its weird ways, does still need some kind of tempo plays and ways to stunt your opponent's game plan, right? Whether that be a few hate bears, like Drawn Magistrate, things like that. But like I'm just
some light staxing.
Yo,
you might say.
Hey, but it's just like this. Does burn exist in Commander, right? Burn does exist in Commander, but burn is going to require things like Roiling Vortex, and Descent into like Avernus or whatever. It's going to need cards like that, which people were saying, no, that's not burn, that's stacks because you were staxing my life. But that's burn, right? So like the thing here is, I think that is not just Seth, by the way. That is everyone. That like I know I riff on Seth for it. Yeah, Seth riffs on me, but I genuinely mean it when I say burn decks do exist, aggro decks exist. It's just the way that they work and the nature of the decks. People they'll have this weird feel bads, but they shouldn't, because a combo deck that's gonna combo off. Why would you feel bad for comboing off, right? Yeah. That is the whole point of your deck. It is to storm, grape shot everyone, whatever. Your Eldrazi deck, whatever, right? Your game plan sometimes will just be an annoying game plan, or will be a game plan that maybe some people don't like, but that's the nature of your deck and you shouldn't feel bad for it.
What are you thinking of as aggro? That's what give me an example of like what is an aggro
night stack?
Like
I played a lot of aggro this whole season of Clash. Yeah. I've played Knights.
Is like
I play
the
humans.
Deck? Are you thinking of that as an aggro deck? Like, no, that's okay.
That's more of just like a blink deck that's like got hate bears. It's I draw it closer to hate bears than any
bear deck.
But my humans deck, which has some overlapping pieces, right? Because, humans. I tell every pod, by the way, I play every human in this deck. So, think of the worst ones. That's what I tell every pod.
Again, that's code for I play stacks. Yeah. But.
No. There's nothing wrong with like a Thalia, right? Because, example, people would say maybe Thalia, Heretic Cathar. That's a stacks piece. No, it puts your creatures in tapped. It slows your resources down so I can keep up my aggressive game plan, right? Because I still play like Thalia's Lieutenants. I still play Rick. I play all these things that pump up my creatures. So I think that's the issue. Aggro does exist in Commander. It's just that maybe before you go off and, asking for the monkey's paw to curl and say aggro is bad, aggro exists. You just may not like the way it plays out.
Yeah, I would argue that it's not good, and people don't like how it plays out. And the only true aggro decks are aggro combo decks, right? Where, like, think Najeela, you're aggressive, and then you like take infinite combats and finish the game. Or like some kind of peripheral deck where like you're beating them down, but then there's just gonna be this big turn where a bunch of damage comes out. Because I believe you can kill someone very easily. Like if you play aggro and you just go after one person, you can probably kill them. But what happens usually is by then, other people are able to wrath the board. And then now you've like reset the game, and now you're playing this 3-player game with one person like looking sad because they're dead. Right? And I think people don't like that. Like people don't like killing someone and having them sit around. And then the game is actually brand new now, right? Like no one is close to dying, and you're here for another hour because the wrath just went off. And when the aggro deck wins, it has to be something like they kill one person, they Teferi's Pro, they kill the second person, they Teferi's Pro again, clever concealment, they kill the third. And it's very hard to get all those stars to align. Most likely someone dies, wrath goes off,
Exactly.
and then you're like, well, right? You're like,
Richard,
well.
Let me ask you this. So you've played against my humans deck. That's aggro, right? And I think it is very hard to wrath that board. Because and let's say we remove the white, right? Because obviously humans has like, Gallifrey Falls no more. I have Teferi's Pro. I've got Flawless Maneuver. If they're not creatures, they are protection spells. Right? That's all they are.
But it's just like wrath. You protect, someone else counters, and like you're done, right? Like,
well, yeah, sure. If someone,
but the problem is like it's not like that. It's because when that happens, one person feels really bad, and you have like this weird 3-player game. I think is like it's not like it's overpowered or something, but it creates a board state where people are not having fun. Like one person is sweating out.
You're trying to end but you were getting
like stacks, right? Is stacks overpowered? Probably not, but people just don't have fun with it. So I feel it's more of that issue versus like it's
propaganda. Stacks is propaganda. Ghostly prisons. People play stacks more. That's another topic for another thing. But people play stacks without knowing.
I mean Winter or Blood Moon. I mean like the really hardcore stacks.
There are varying degrees of stacks, but if you are an aggro deck, you do adopt the minor hate bears aspect of it, right? And if not, let's say, but Krim, let's say you remove the white and you remove all the protection spells. How do you survive a board wipe? Then you're either playing like blue, which gives you then a more so proactive counterspell than a reactive counterspell because you're protecting your game plan. And you are ending the game. And then if you just go like mono green, well, you're elf ball, so you rebuild pretty damn quick. Right? There's lots of aggro decks that exist. You just, I don't think they're bad at all. I just think that people need to keep beating down their blood bag.
They're very boom bust, which Krim accepts, right?
Like when Krim plays a combo deck, he gets stuff, he's like, fine, right? But there's people that get like really salty because they didn't get to do their thing. But like, if you did your thing, you would win, right? So we can't let you do your thing. So like, either the aggro deck looks incredibly stupid, or everyone is dead, right? Like, and a lot of people don't like that gameplay, right? Like they want to feel like they're doing something useful rather than like either nothing goes on or I win the game. So that's another reason why I think people tend to shy away from aggro. It's kind of boom bust. No one has interaction, free win. It's like 8 wrath meta. I don't think you're getting anywhere, right? Like I think you're done, right?
I got another one for you, Crib. So you're talking about aggro and your aggro decks. I know one thing you mentioned in the past. I want to know if you're doubling down or taking back Rast and aggro decks. Because I know before you were a big believer in like, even if I'm aggro, I got to have a bunch of Rast in my deck. Doubling down or taking it back?
I play Ruinous Ultimatum. I play Farewell. I play Onto Inversion.
Okay.
I play Delayed Fireball Blast. I play Fire Covenant. I play Gallifrey Falls. I've gone up wrath in my aggro deck.
Okay. Doubling down it is.
I believe I double down with Krim. I know Phil always makes fun of us for this, but you are out-tempoed the whole game, right? Every creature you play, there's 3 creatures your opponents are playing, right? And sometimes they get greedy and they overextend into the board, maybe because they're scared of your creatures, right? And then you snap off the Wrath, you have the advantage now. Now you can deploy your threats and kill them, right? So I think Wraths are staple in every deck, including aggro decks. You play combo deck, you play Wraths. Control deck, Wraths. Mid-range, Wraths. Aggro, Wraths. So
and especially as more Wraths start favoring an aggro deck, like specific niche ones. Like there's blow up all non-tokens. Great. I play that in my token deck, right? So they are building more Wraths that can fit any game plan.
All right. Seth, hit us with this hot take. I don't even know where you're going with this one. Let's see.
Okay, so I was asking the Twitch stream and social media about some things that I might have, gotten wrong in the past in Commander, thinking about this podcast. And one thing that people brought up a lot is you love 3-mana rocks way too much. Every time a 3-mana mana rock comes out, you're saying, oh, bobbleheads, they're going to be so good. I'm going to play them in every deck. Hourglass of the Lost. Oh, it's going to be great. I'm going to put it in all my decks. And then you never put them in any of your decks. So I thought about it, and I think they might actually be right. I know. So I guess I'm walking back my love of bobbleheads or 3-mana mana rocks. I think part of it is I still think they're better than people give them credit for. Like when people say 3-mana mana rocks are unplayable, you should never put them in your deck, I still think that's silly. But maybe as a reaction to that, I think I maybe went too far the other direction. And whenever I see this 3-mana mana rock that does any cool thing, I'm like, oh my God, that card's going to be so good. I tried to play the bobblehead deck. I rolled so many dice and it didn't do anything. It was so disappointing. I put so much effort into that. So I guess I gotta walk back or take back my my commitment to these 3-mana mana rocks. Not that they're all bad or you should never play them, but I personally think I might overrate them just a tiny bit.
So wait, let me get this straight. You or do you think that they are you have overrated them, so you're walking?
He always rates them highly.
Every time I'm
and then we're like, I don't believe you, Saffron Olive. And he's like, you'll see.
Does he? I'm trying to think of every time he does. No, you're right. He's even overrated the really bad 3-mana common ones and uncommon ones.
Oh yeah,
it's a mana rock in the worst case, right?
What's the one that you fought us tooth and nail?
Magnifying glass, where you pay for to make a clue. Boy, back to my first days in Commander. Oh, I don't even the bobbleheads I remember specifically being I'm gonna play these in every deck. They look insane. I can do so much cool stuff with them. I remember that as a recent one that I was really high on, and y'all were like, no. I don't know.
There was one that's a Sign in Blood. There was a Sign in Blood 3-mana mana rock.
Yeah.
You were like, no. This is it, baby.
What is it?
And then we fought about it on
That's not bad.
It's no, you have to sack it, right? And then it's
a cheaper Hedron archive, but you lose life. Yeah, I can't remember the name of it, but yeah, I
thought about it.
Or play Command Sphere.
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you play that card?
Yeah, no, I do actually sometimes, but
there's some that are playable. Cursed Mirror.
Cursed Mirror is really good.
The 3-mana red one that copies something. Yep. Machine God's Effigy, 4 mana even.
Yep.
That becomes a copy of something, but still a mana rock.
I like Sauron's Signpost sometimes, the one that can change the attacker when you flash it in.
I love that. I play the hell out of
a single creature. Yeah, that one actually you get value out of.
I can't tell if he's trolling or serious.
No, I play the hell out of that card. That card
is he being serious or is he being sarcastic? I can't tell.
If Richard makes fun of you for misleading signposts, I got you. I'm here with you. I stand with you on that one.
There we go.
They are making mana rocks that are more expensive better, though. So, I don't think you are wrong or weird for, rating mana rocks that cost more than 2 highly. I just think you choose some of the weirdest ones. Example, Sauron's. What's the 4-mana Sauron mana rock?
Is it Relic of Sauron?
Yeah, Relic of Sauron. That card is the nuts. It taps for any 2 of any combination of Grixis, and for 4 mana, and then you could pay 2 to draw 2, discard 1. And then Throne of Eldraine is a 5-mana rock, and I think that card is nuts.
Throne of Eldraine's really good. And those are like, you got to be specific decks, right? Like Throne of Eldraine, you got to be monocolor. Relic, you got to be a Crim deck. You got to be in Grixis. But if you're in those decks, they're very strong. So I think that's true. There are good mana rocks. And I think part of the problem too is Wizards just print so many of them. I think they've realized that like Commander players really like mana rocks. So now we're just getting so many different 3-mana rocks with like a different twist. And every time I see one, I get really hyped for it. And there was just too many to possibly play. Kind of like you get to the like cutting your war room from your mana base because there's so many good utility lands. The same thing's happening with 3-mana rocks, except you can't afford to play an entire mana base worth of 3-mana rocks. You only play a couple of them, which makes it even worse.
You play 0 because there's 2-mana rocks. If you're gonna, it's like arguing for like 2-mana dorks, right? You're like, well, if you're gonna go down the mana dork trade, you might as well play the 1-mana dorks, right? They gotta do something incredibly cracked if they cost more. And your baseline is Worn Power Stone, which is a 3-mana rock that adds 2 mana, right? That's like your bare minimum you should be comparing against. But like, I don't play any mana rocks, let alone 3-mana rocks, unless it's Curse Mirror. Then or
Midnight
a couple
Clock.
of them.
I like Midnight
Clock.
I play Midnight
one
Clock.
of them. Like, but you're not playing them for the mana rock anymore. You're really playing them for the other ability, right? And I can see that.
But the fact of the matter is, they are a mana rock, so I guess that's nice. So it's wait a minute, are they MDFCs?
Ooh, kind of. They're MDFCs that died to farewell.
But they died to farewell. Like, this is the problem. This is why we don't play these.
And again, for those we're filling in the brackets, farewell means any sweeper, okay, that hits.
In this case, sweepers that hit more than creatures, because these are not creatures. So undo inversion. Okay, I got a good one. Bounce lands. So remember we played like 10 versus 100 versus 1,000 versus 10,000? And I had the $10,000 deck, so I have at my disposal every card in Magic's history, regardless of the price. And then people looked at my mana base and they're like, what is this scrub doing? Why is he playing bounce lands in his, like $10,000 deck? And that is because I believe they are the best land cycle Wizards has ever printed, right? It's a land that enters and then you return a land to hand. That is draw a card, right? That is a land that ETBs tap that fixes colors and draws a card. I play bounce lands in every single deck. And I'm willing to cut Surveil lands, Shock lands, Triomes, Fetches, like any of those lands to put these bounce lands in. And over time, I've become more fanatical about them, Like, I still do not understand why nobody sees how disgustingly broken bounce lands are. Like, it's a tap land that draws a card.
A land,
right?
Yeah.
And people, a land is not a card. I'm like, what is your hand exactly? Right? like, why do you not want a land? Do you not want to make land drop number 5? Like, you need cards. Lands count as cards. You need them, right? And then also MDFCs, Odowarus, Blasejus, whatever, right? You can pick those up and reuse them if you want as well. So I think bounce lands are actually the best cycle. And I'm looking to cut anything. Basics, once all the basics are gone, we're going down to like Shocks and Surveils, right? Triomes, maybe. Like, we're cutting anything to add in bounce lands. And I'm waiting for Wizards to add the fetchable bounce land, right? Because if everyone thinks these lands suck in their budget, Wizards will eventually power creep them and make them fetchable. And then it'll be terrible.
So broken.
We're just going to keep fetching bounce lands all over the place.
Rich is gonna end up with an all bounce land mana base somehow, which it should be interesting.
Is interesting.
I feel like I have not done my job. Like, in the early years of Commander Clash, I think I got pretty much everyone on Commander Clash to stop playing bounce lands by aggressively strip mining bounce lands any chance I got. But over time, I stopped doing that, and now everyone's all about the bounce lands again. So I feel like I need to punish that. You're right; they're very strong, but shouldn't I punish them, or we punish them more?
We just played a game where I had a Dousing Dagger land, you had a Strip Mine, and it never once crossed your mind to go down 1 mana to take me down 3 mana. Right?
Like, you curious about that.
Like, you will never, right? Because you're taking away your own mana to deal with this. And
what about
if you take my bounce land, great.
Or Demolition Field.
I will keep my Tri-land alive, right? My Lotus Veil land alive. Like, I play like 6 bounce lands. You can kill them all, right? Yeah. Like, it's simply not worth, right?
to kill
I
it.
will say
I think that's yeah. And there's been more powerful utility lands, so it's gotten a lot harder. Like you kind of got to wait for not a bounce land, but a Field of the Dead or something that's even more impactful to like take down now. So it's a lot harder to spend your strip mine because you only have one, right? Unless you play Wasteland. So it's hard. It's hard to actually spend it on a bounce land.
I do think I'll take Backsies here. I would say that I used to say they were unplayable, but because of the MDFCs, that's not Richard's draw a card argument, because I think that his draw a card argument falls a little short for me, only because the tempo loss is so big.
Drop 4?
No, well, that more with the tempo loss, right? Like the tempo loss.
It's one mana draw a card. Would you not pay 1 mana on a random turn to draw a card? Like it's
I would, but
it's a tempo loss for upside, which means you're just doing something, right? Tempo loss matters when you lose tempo for no reason, right? But
don't you play
a card?
Don't you play the game lands, Krim, and like guild gates? Like
no, I don't play the game. I don't play the game lands or the guild gates.
No,
I play fetchable sources.
Yeah, he plays fetchable, like the snow duels or whatever.
Yeah, only the ones that give me land types, right? But even then, I'm trimming those. And again, this was the old way of thinking. But now MDFCs exist, and they exist by a lot. I have a lot of MDFCs in all my decks. So because of that, bounce lands are back on the menu. I do like them because of that. That's actually drawing a card. I think to me that's actually drawing a card, because the loss before of just bouncing okay, all right, calm down. If the loss of like playing one of my lands, whether they be a shock land or anything like that, and then having to play it again and at a loss of 2 life, this is more of like, yeah, maybe I drew a card, but I really also didn't. I lost a card as well, because I felt like I lost a resource.
Your land makes 2 mana. It's
next
a tap
turn
land.
it does.
It's a tap land.
Yeah,
right?
Next
you have to look at it as a tap
land, yeah.
Right? Yeah, so you lose 1 mana on the turn you play it, but at the upside is you draw a land, right?
But now, like nowadays, if I'm not playing enough MDFCs, I don't think I would play a bounce land.
Ooh,
if I played all basics, I would, or whatever, like mostly basics and duels, I would not play a bounce land.
I'm with Richard. I think it's worth it in pretty much every deck. I don't know about the like jamming them in 5 colors. I usually don't go that far. Maybe I sneak a couple in 5 colors, but I'm definitely not playing like 7 of them in my 5 color deck or whatever you can play. So I haven't gotten like that far, but I do think like even without MDFCs, like they're worth it. I stopped playing them for a long time, so maybe this is a take back because I did stop playing them. But then I realized that no one actually punishes you for playing them, because I was very afraid. Like if you do get strip mined, it really sets you back, right? If you bounce one of your lands and then you immediately lose your 2 mana land, it really, really slows you down. But then I realized no one actually does that in practice anymore. So I started playing them again, and they're great.
Also set themselves back to the Stone Ages, right? No one.
That's why you play Demolition Field. Demolition Field is so important.
It's the principle
so
of the thing, Richard. It's the principle. It's just the principle.
I mean, I mean, I'm fine with getting got 1 out of 10 games, but it's been like 2 years or something. No one has gotten me like ever, right? Like, and even if you get got, it's not that bad because that person came down with you, right? Like 2 people got set behind, right?
Yeah, it's kind of the problem. Yeah.
I'm waiting for power creep bounce lands, baby. They're so good. I'm so sad in monocolor decks because you can play only the 2 colorless one, Archdruid and Guildless Commons. Then you got to play like the Visions one that require you to have an untapped.
Oh, that's spending 2 mana the turn that you play them, right? Because you got to.
That's 2, but it has to be a specific land too.
Yeah, yeah. Those do you even play those? I almost never play the Karoo cycle because they're just way too hard to make work. Really? Wow.
Would you pay 2 mana to draw a card, Seth?
Yeah, I guess when you put it that way, but there's so many hoops
that
to
argument
jump
again.
through.
I paid 2 mana to draw a card. I think I take it.
All right, Krim, hit us with the last hot take.
So my last hot take, and I said this tons of times. I've said it on our other podcast, right? And I think Universes Beyond is the best thing to happen to Magic, and I am now not even quadrupling. That's not enough. I think I like however many more times times 30. I'm like that many times down on this. I am all in on Universes Beyond because maybe not every set is going to hit, right? And maybe not every set's going to be a banger, but a majority of the sheer number of people that I see nowadays getting into Magic. I'm not talking returning players. And even some returning players too, but I'm talking new players. Actual new players who did not give the second of the day to think about Magic, now care about Magic. You've got new people playing Magic that are maybe a month into the game, a month and a half. That's their knowledge of Magic. And this is, again, why? Oh, I saw the new Lord of the Rings deck. I saw the Fallout decks. I'm now getting into Magic because I hear Final Fantasy's getting cards. I'm getting ready for the Marvel cards. I'm doing all these things. You are starting to see that between like Universes Beyond and all the secret layers coming out. Oh, my little brother. I think, Seth, you also had a similar story where you now have a nephew or someone that cares because there's a Fortnite secret layer, right?
Yeah, that's definitely one of the upsides, yeah.
Magic, I said this a while back. Everyone's like, oh, Crim's just a shill, yada, 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 yada. Yeah, I get it. All right, be mad, stay mad. But the point is, now those people, I'm sorry, dude, you got more people to play the game with. Why is that? Oh, because of Universes Beyond bringing more people in. Like, we are now getting at a crazy rate. Magic is getting a lot of new players. It's just, like, maybe it's cycling out some of the older players who are just angry all the time, but that's fine. Like, we're getting new players, new blood into the game, and I think that bleeds into new circles. You're seeing that between not only new players, new content creators. We've got lots of people getting into just Magic as a whole, and I think whenever Universes Beyond started, I have no idea now. It feels like it's been a billion years. We are actually, whenever Walking Dead was 2020,
yep.
We're seeing more of that payoff. It's slow, but it's building and it's getting there. And I said it then that I think this is the hot take. Then I think this is actually going to be a net positive for the game.
Ooh, I will. That's an interesting one. I feel like some of the recent Universes Beyond have like kind of cooled me on it to some extent. I've always kind of like seen the good and the bad of Universes Beyond, and I definitely think there's upsides to it, but there's been some recent ones that to me feel a little like soulish cash grabs, maybe, not to be too harsh. Like,
you can just say Assassin's Creed.
Which that's
you can
Assassin's
just say,
Creed
I mean, but Assassin's Creed
Who?
is one. Doctor Who, the Clue one, was actually maybe the worst one because they were actually like trying to sell their own Hasbro like property off of it and their anniversary.
Wait, that was Universes Beyond.
Well, that's is that Universes Beyond? That's just like it is, like, I think that's like a sub game within the like Markov Manor, which flopped as a whole, right? But the thing is it that those things sucked, or that we're not a part of that fan base?
Well,
because again, I'm here to
you're right. It's not that those things suck, but when it comes down to it, Wizards makes Magic for Magic players, not Assassin's Creed. So if all the Magic players don't like it, who are they even making it for, right? Like, isn't that Wizards' primary job is to like make Magic for Magic players and not sell Assassin's Creed skins to whoever buys them?
Funny enough, skins, you can put it as that way, but that sells. Like, that sells in video games, right? Like you know, we've seen it in Fortnite and all that. But I think that, yes, they want to make Magic cards that Magic players can enjoy, right? Which is good. And they've done that because there's IPs that I don't care about, right? That have had cards. Like, I don't care about Warhammer. We clearly do not like Lord of the Rings. You and I know that.
Right. Oh, and that's like the best Universes Beyond, in my opinion. So I don't think it correlates with my personal taste to the IP, because I don't care about Lord of the Rings at all, and I think that's one of the best Magic sets they've ever made.
But let's just say that, ignoring that, right? They've made stuff that Magic players have enjoyed, but they've also onboarded people. Like, you know, it's like, why do I want to get more Magic players that are already playing Magic? I need to get new blood into the game. And the new blood is where this is nice, right? We're getting new players, not the same player coming back, although we've had that too. But they've done a fine job of threading the needle where it keeps most Magic players as happy as they can be, but let's be honest, I feel like there's a perpetual loop of of anger and disappointment that never stops, right? But for the most part, I think that a majority of Magic players are happy. But the coolest part is that they're bringing in new players. And like we talked about it on one of the podcasts, well, where Doctor Who, is it a flop? But the thing is, I read the comments and the Doctor Who enjoyers loved the set. Right. And like maybe Doctor Who didn't pop off for us, but it got a lot of people that love Doctor Who. And it may not be like, oh, that is 1 million new players. Maybe that's just like 100,000 people. Right. That's 100,000 people that Magic didn't have. So you're getting new blood. And that's the importance, I think, of this.
I also wonder, I wonder if those people are going to stick around too. Because I remember when Arena launched, right? They launched Arena and there was this huge rush of like so many streamers from other games and it was the hot thing all over Twitch. Yeah. And then a year later, all those people were gone and they were on to the next hot game doing the next hot thing. So do you think that Doctor Who makes Magic fans for life, or Assassin's Creed makes Magic fans for life? Or is it just like the gimmick of the month and then 6 months from now they're on to whatever other, Assassin's Creed thing is going on at the time, or Doctor Who thing is going on at the time?
Like a Twitch raid, right? Like you had mentioned. I mean, streaming culture, people move fast, right?
Yeah.
That's fine. They still love Magic. They just don't stream it as much. That's fine. But the one thing, just like in streaming culture, you get a raid, right? Like somebody raids your channel. You're not trying to convert every single raider. You want to convert maybe 5. Like those are the 5 lifers, right? Like, and if that's already a lot. So if Doctor Who brings in 100,000 people that just want to play the Doctor Who cards, that's great. Maybe 10 of them, those are now lifers. And I think maybe those numbers, these are all hypothetical numbers. I don't have the actual number of how many people it brings in, but you get the gist of it. And so I think as long as it can convert a few people, those are few more new blood people that will play like I did since I was a kid. Right? These are people that will be in this ecosystem forever.
Yeah.
And I think that's good. And we're all a little bit of masochists because we played through some bad sets that we hated with some bad formats, but we still play the game. And those are, if you can get lifelong players like that, that's all you care about. And especially new ones.
I'm all about bringing the new players. And I think that that's the biggest upside of Universes Beyond. But I am skeptical that 7-card booster packs sold at an inflated price is actually the best way to bring in new players. That kind of seems soulless cash grabby to me to some extent when it comes to some of these products. So I think that's my criticism. Like, if you want to bring in new players, why don't you make it cheap? Why don't you make it accessible? Why do it in the greediest way possible that players don't want and is bad for the Assassin's Creed new people and for existing players? So it's some of those choices, I think, that it isn't even about the IP that is kind of soured me on some of the releases. But what do you think of all this, Richard? You haven't jumped in on this.
That's a product problem, though. Like the charging was that's 30th anniversary pricing, right? That's purely Magic, and it was balls pricing, right? But
yeah,
I would say was some god awful pricing.
If you ignore the new players, which is an obvious bonus, as a pure Magic player, I am very happy with Universes Beyond, because for the longest time, we've asked for I want other ways to enjoy my hobby that are not playing the game. I want a Netflix series. I want a movie. Well, guess what? I can play Fallout MTG and then watch a banger Amazon Prime Fallout TV series, right? I can go play Lord of the Rings and then watch real Lord of the Rings, and because I'm a cheater, I actually enjoy it.
Don't do
right?
that.
When Wizards designs a set, they have to design the story. They have to design the aesthetic, the design of the plane, designs of the characters and all of that. And then they have to design the mechanics, right? With Universes Beyond, they can throw away the former two and use proven designs, right? Like Lord of the Rings is popular for a reason. Fallout is popular for a reason. They can take those and then apply game-winning mechanics and then have this banger product. So even as a Magic enjoyer, I don't care about the new players. I appreciate Fallout, because then I can go watch the Fallout show and have a good time, and then I'll download the Fallout game and play the Fallout game, right? It's awesome, right? So contrast that to just, I don't know, playing Wilds of Eldraine and then playing the Magic the Gathering MMO. right? You're like, oh, right? Playing Gideon's Puzzle Quest or whatever the heck on mobile. It's like, yeah, right? Like, I could go play like actual Lord of the Rings games that are good. So I actually really like it. The only caveat so far has been Doctor Who to me, because it is so outside the universe. Like, it's just like British people in suits. You're like, what is this? But like Assassin's Creed, Warhammer, Dungeons and Dragons, Lord of the Rings, like none of them really felt out of universe. And I'm actually very scared for Wizards taking us to a new plane, removing the potential for universes beyond. So if you look at Strixhaven is Harry Potter that you have at home, right? Clearly, it was ripped from Harry Potter with, sports ball and witches and wizards and all that. And you would imagine this precludes them from making a Harry Potter universes beyond, right? So we don't care about Harry Potter anymore. It doesn't matter, right? But imagine whatever new hot IP comes out, and then Wizards decided that they couldn't get the IP, so they're going to get rip-off IP and make it, and then you can't make it anymore, right? Like we know they're doing Marvel, but imagine they did superheroes, in universe. Then how can they do Marvel anymore, right? Imagine they do Star Wars or something in universe. How can they do Star Wars in the future, right? Like all of these big IPs, I'm worried that Wizards will take them, and then they can't do it again without being unique. Like, I mean, I guess they go back to Harry Potter, but how can the mechanics be different from lesson learned and deans and whatever, right? So that's what I'm worried about, actually. Them scavenging from universes beyond.
Very, very easily, like when you say Marvel, right? The beauty is some of these IPs are bigger, like Final Fantasy, Marvel, all these things, they're bigger than just a superhero genre, right? Or a fantasy game. And because of that, you can easily just go back and be like, oh, I want to do Strange Academy. That's literally in Marvel. Or you could even go outside of Marvel, you go Umbrella Academy, right? And then you just bring back Strixhaven through that. So there's the beauty of these IPs is it can be as easy as creative, as long as they are creative about it. And I think that's the main thing. And there's a lot of subcategories that come into all of these these brands, these IPs that could fit into those niches.
Don't you have to if you're gonna, we're probably getting so far off topic on this podcast, but like if you're gonna do that, like, don't you gotta meet expectations? Like, I'm not a Marvel guy, so if I hear Marvel, I'm expecting the little bit I know of Marvel, like the superheroes, the big characters. If they're doing a Marvel set and it's some Umbrella Academy, and I'm like, what in the world is this? I would come away from, or you know what I mean? If it was some fringe weird side story that isn't those main things, I think I'd end up pretty disappointed in it, honestly, as someone who's pretty casual with Marvel stuff. Or same with Final Fantasy. Like, I know a handful of characters. If it's some I don't know, fan fiction story that no one ever knows about, and that's what the set's based on, I'm gonna be disappointed. So I think it's maybe not as broad as it sounds.
To dunk on Krim, if the Marvel set comes out and it's all about Doctor Strange and there's not a Spider-Man as the base character, I'd be like, WTF, right? Like, you have to meet expectations. Like, it has to be Spider-Man, it has to be Avengers, it has to be X-Men or something, and then you can put your side characters in and whatever, right? But if one of those big ones are missing, let's say they do DC and it's not Superman or Batman, you're like, what is this? It's Aquaman. You're like, right? Aquaman is very popular, but that doesn't meet the expectation of one of the big guns, right?
I guess the main
Lord of the Rings, but it's the Amazon.
It's a big
series.
world.
What?
It's a big world in all of these IPs, so you can explore. Example, they don't just have to do. They could go back to Fallout by exploring more of the world easily. Yeah. Hell, they could even go back and just do the TV show if they wanted. Right? Because maybe they come back after 2-3 seasons. All right, cool. We're back to Fallout. So there's a lot you can do within these IPs. Like Lord of the Rings, we all know they can do more with that. They could do so many things within all these IPs. So the main message is that these are bigger worlds and they're not just this one thing. You can do so much in all these places. And the reason why I like this and the universes beyond method is that I don't think they have to throw away any of the previous tools they've had. How we make cards, how we do this. It's just another tool in the weapon, like they could use in the weapon box. And so I guess that's my way of thinking of it. And so now if like we have Duskmourn coming out, and that looks awesome. That looks so awesome. But I am not afraid of Dusk. Like, I'm happy they wanted to do their rendition of horror. They could have easily gone back and done, I don't know, like Pan's Labyrinth, but a whole set, right? But instead, they went with Duskmourn. And they're doing their original take, and I'm excited.
Wait till they
to
make knockoff Doctor Strange, Krim, and then you'll never see the real Doctor Strange.
That's just the Venture Bros, right? That's like Dr. Weird or whatever. They made.
Okay, we've gone so far off topic, but the good news or the bad news is we have no choice. Wizards has already quadrupled down on Universes Beyond. We know we're getting Final Fantasy.
It's happening.
We know we're getting Marvel, and once everyone sees Marvel, right? Everyone's gonna want in on this, right? So I expect we're gonna get millions and millions of IPs lined up for Magic the Gathering. So Universes Beyond is happening, and I think they softened people with the One Ring. I know there was a turning point somewhere, right? At one point, Universes Beyond was super hated, right?
Yep.
That was probably Walking Dead, right? But at some point, it's been like, it's okay, or I'll accept it for this one. And then by the time we've got to Lord of the Rings, I feel the general sentiment has turned. And there's still some holdouts, and there's some people that still want their magic lore and their Jace the Mind Sculptors and whatnot. But I think they're getting worn down by Wizards, right? It just takes a One Ring in Final Fantasy and another banger staple favorite card in Marvel, and that'll be it. I think.
I mean, we're in the year where you could have Socrates versus Ryu versus Megatron versus like Rick, and I don't know, add in Urza somewhere in there. Like,
I feel Socrates is more breaking to me than like, why is Socrates so strong? Why is he not a 1/1? What's going on? There should be 0/1s, right? Like Thalia's a 2/1. Like what? That is the immersion breaking to me.
Thalia is stronger than Socrates, dude. Everybody knows that.
All right. So those are our hot takes. Double down or take backsies. Here's your chance, audience. You've left us many comments over the years. Let us know if you're gonna double down or take backsies. I expect to see a million farewell comments in the comments. But if you want to take backsies them, you're welcome to as well. And we'll see y'all back here next time. See ya.